Hello, I'm Valerie Biden Owens, chair of the Biden Institute at the University of Delaware. Today, I have the privilege of introducing the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, who was sworn into office on November 16, 2021. At the age of 36, Mayor Wu was the youngest person elected mayor of Boston in almost a century. She is also the first woman and the first person of color to be elected mayor of Boston. Thank you, Mayor Wu, for joining us today on this episode of All Politics is Personal, a program where we introduce the public to the person behind the politician. We know anyone can research your policies and accomplishments, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about you. Tell us a little bit what it was like growing up Wu.
Well, thank you so much for having me, first of all. It's an honor to be with you. And frankly, growing up, if someone had told me that I would even be in this conversation, I would have told them that they were absolutely crazy. I grew up as the oldest kid of four in an immigrant family.
Girls or boys?
Um, uh, Myself, then a brother, then two sisters, 12 years range across all of us. And so my parents had been in the US for about a year when I was born, did not speak English fluently, very humble beginnings, came to this country with nothing.
Why?
And for the chance that one day they would have kids who would have a better life. And so they reminded us of that our entire lives. And we grew up with this sense of how much sacrifice had gone into our freedom, our ability to go to great public schools and to be able to experience all the opportunities in the world. And so that sense of just wanting to do good, do right by my family was what always drove me, but that never included politics. In my family, my parents had immigrated from Taiwan to the US, but they themselves were also children of immigrants because both sets of my grandparents had fled mainland China during the Civil War as they were fighting on the Democratic side and lost in the Communist Revolution. And so they had fled over to Taiwan where they started over. And in my family, politics was synonymous with war and famine and a bunch of other really horrible things that had happened to the family over multiple generations. And so we were supposed to just keep our heads down, don't get in trouble, and kind of work hard and just support the family.
Wow. And look at you now. Are your mom and dad alive?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. I would say one of the biggest unexpected shifts came when I was towards the end of my time in college. I had gotten a scholarship to come out to Harvard and was going to work in business and just make sure I was keeping my head down and supporting the family. And then I got a call from one of my younger sisters that there was something very wrong with our mom and they needed me back at home.
Where was back at home?
In the Chicago area. And so I flew back from Boston, and my mom was in the middle of a full-blown mental health crisis, had not been eating, not sleeping, self-medicating with alcohol for a bit, and certainly not able to kind of manage raising my sisters at that point. And she was later diagnosed with late onset schizophrenia. We didn't
Oh my God.
know it at that time. We
Yeah.
didn't know anything about mental illness. And even now, it's very hard, having such a sense of stigma. We really felt that it was our fault somehow. And I just had felt so much fear and shame and not knowing who to talk to or how. And it was a long journey to even get to the point where we could reach out for help.
Did you leave school?
At that point, I had graduated and I was working in my first job downtown. So
Which
this
was
was kind of a consultant at the Boston Consulting Group. And I basically took leave, left behind my young professional life, and thought that if I just helped stabilize my family, get my mom back on track, get my sisters back on track, then she might kind of snap out of it
Yeah,
as quickly
you
as
can
it
make it
felt
right.
like. If I just worked really hard, I opened a business and I had worked to create this tea house because she had always talked about when we were growing up, she stayed at home with four kids, and she always joked about how one day when we were out of the house, she would retire and actually get a job that she wanted running a tea house. And I thought, well, maybe if I just do that, it'll be better. And that experience of opening a small family-run business, all the red tape of local government, all the navigating the healthcare system, the school system on behalf of my sisters, I became really fed up with how hard it was to do all of that. And eventually we did it, but my mom didn't snap out of it. And I realized that it was going to be more of a long-term condition. But in that process, I saw how important it is to really, that there's a gap between government services and programs that are there to help, and yet the types of families who need help often don't feel like they know where to go or how to even reach out.
Was that the switch that put you into politics then?
That was a switch that showed me, maybe I should do something about trying to fix things. It's still a big jump from feeling like local government is somewhere where I might be able to make a difference and then running for office. I'm actually quite introverted. I'm quite, at the end of college, if you had asked any of my friends, we all would have said I'd be the last person they would expect to be in politics. And so it really was another unexpected situation where I had then come back to Boston for law school, this time with my whole family in tow.
Your mom too?
My mom too, getting healthcare at some of the best hospitals and community health centers in the country. At that point, I had officially become the legal guardian for my younger sister, and we're trying to navigate through
How much
school systems.
younger?
12 years. So she was about 10 when all of this started.
So she's, little girls.
Yeah, 10 and 16. My sisters were when at the very beginning of it.
Boy, that you are the responsible elder child, eldest child.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you realize in those moments, it felt like we might not survive. That day to day, how to even get to the next day was such a big struggle and so much effort to keep my mom safe in the midst of intense delusions and paranoia and trying to steer her towards treatment, or keeping my sisters on track with all the trauma at home, with how to then kind of just get yourself together to go to school and have the be in a mindset to study and to learn. And I realized at some point that whether or not I knew it growing up, my parents had already been pouring into us, right? Showing us, putting us in different positions where we had it in us to figure things out and to just kind of figure out how to move forward and make it happen. And so ultimately, I still cite her strength, her example, for being what has given me the resilience and the ability to find a way through.
Responsible to do the right thing. When you left Chicago to come back, you said you went to Harvard Law School.
Yes.
Then? How did you get to decide to go to law school? You're still managing. You're now the head of the house. And how did you get in and graduate from Harvard Law School, doing all that, the thing that mattered most, which is taking care of family?
My whole life, I can't remember a moment where I wasn't helping navigate in some way. My parents, we grew up in a very traditional kind of immigrant household where the parents were in charge inside the house and they knew everything. They were in some ways quite strict. But a funny thing would happen anytime we would leave the house. As soon as we stepped out the door, bundled up and went outside, I would get pushed out front because I spoke English. And I was then helping translate and interpret in a lot, everything from parent-teacher conferences to being in the store or just out and about. And I felt the sense that after all I had experienced with the challenges of a municipal government permitting system and school system and healthcare, that if I could somehow help translate again this language of the law, that was often the barrier in a lot of different cases, whether permitting or legalese around health insurance or how to navigate the court system around guardianship and education. And so there was a sense that maybe I could help make things right and help translate and take down some of those same barriers. And then when I walked into my first day of law school, My contracts law professor was Elizabeth Warren. And by my last year, she was running for US Senate. And so I just said, is there anything I can do to help? And she kind of put me to work on the ground in Boston. But that was my first ever real experience in politics, just because I had known her a couple of years before.
She's a remarkable tutor, isn't she? A mentor. She's spectacular. When you got out of law school, then what what was your job then? What was your first real job?
So I remember graduation day. I almost missed the ceremony because by my third year of law school, her campaign was in full swing, and I was working full time on the campaign. Kind of had scheduled my classes to avoid uh, the in-person experiences and just to take the test and be done. And so I started the day with a standout at North Station where I was organizing all the campaign signs and we had a big rally. And then I checked the watch and I had to pull my graduation gown out of the bag as well and then hop on the MBTA to get to graduation. So by the time I graduated, I was already working. I was probably spending more time on the campaign than on campus at that point. We finished out that campaign in November, and I ended up running for city council the election cycle after that in Boston.
Did you have any traditions that you must have? That were they the Taiwanese tradition or the Chinese tradition or the American traditions or a mixture of both? Like
Yeah.
for Thanksgiving, Christmas, holidays, what was it like?
Um, I distinctly remember when I got to Harvard as an undergraduate. Sometimes you get an email and there'd be different opportunities and this and that. And one day they had an etiquette class where you could sign up and you kind of practice if you're out at a business dinner with someone, how to behave in this and that. And I took it, and I had not, up until that moment in college, I had really never been in a setting where you needed to use multiple sets of Western forks and knives and spoons, all different directions. At home, we ate every single night with chopsticks. And that was the expectation. On the weekends, we would drive, we'd all pile into the minivan and drive an hour and a half to get to at that point, the closest Chinese grocery store,
Oh.
which was still pretty far away. And that was, I think my parents really wanted us to keep connection to culture and language, but it was also what helped them still feel a little bit of home in this country that was still pretty new to them.
I used to teach a course. It was called Confidence at the Table, and it was at the conference table and also the dinner table. And it was really reversed. The students I taught were American students who did not know how to use chopsticks or any Asian. They didn't know how to approach the Asian cuisine. And actually they were kind of butchering up the continental style too. So it was. It means a lot that you don't have to worry about what spoon to use,
right.
that you can talk to somebody about your ideas.
Exactly.
Instead
It's
of
a different level of fluency and confidence. And, growing up, when I would bring my lunch from home to school, there were several moments getting bullied over, having seaweed in my lunch or the types of foods that my family ate at home that were different from everyone else's. And that was a distinct experience, really reinforcing to me that there were invisible barriers. Even though I could speak English fluently, unlike my parents, there were still different walls that were up in spaces. And now I get to be in this role and see that in our Boston public school system, we have a school meals program that includes food from just about every culture and cuisine that's reflected. And my kids come home having experienced lunch alongside their classmates with their different heritages represented, and it's a completely different day and age. And that's the power of what you can do to create a sense of belonging and home in all the different spaces that we have.
how old are your children? How many children do you
I
have?
have 2 boys. They're 6 and 9.
Oh, they're still little. Yeah, they're still a handful.
They wouldn't say. They say they're medium now.
Oh, are they? When you were in school, in high school, and in college, were you involved in student government or sports or music or arts or?
I did a lot. I never did student government. I just never thought of myself in that way as a leader or involved in politics. But I played piano. I did dance, and we had a badminton team at school, and I kept very, very busy. But it was in some ways wanting to make the most of every opportunity that we had available.
Well, okay, so you're in Chicago, right? How did you get to Harvard undergraduate in the first place? Why did you choose that?
I, in some
That's kind of
ways,
far away from home, which is some way a good thing.
I didn't apply to that many schools. Um, there was this sense of expectation at home, and in some ways, when I got into Harvard, I kind of felt like I didn't have a choice and was going to have to go, given my parents' expectations. And when I visited, there were a number of schools that I had looked at on the West Coast or in other parts, and the flight actually to Boston was one of the shorter ones compared to some of the ones that we had examined. And then what really sealed the deal for me is when I learned, when I visited Harvard, that every single day they have ice cream, and every week they have clam chowder in the dining halls. So then I was done.
Yeah, wise decision. Another one. Is there anything that you found in your job now as a mayor? I'm not talking about policy now. I want to talk about you personally. What was the what are some highlights of your experience? My brother has told me that the hardest job in government is to be a mayor or to be the president of city council, both of which you did, because everybody knows where you live. They know your house. They can come up and knock on your door. What kind of experiences, if any, stick out in your mind that good
Well,
and bad?
he's got a pretty hard job too, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that. But
They can't reach him. They can't knock on the door of the White House, and they can knock on your door.
That's right. Grocery store,
Yeah.
dinner, all the time. And that's what I love about it. There's no way to escape how real decisions are when you're at the level closest to the people. My kids will come home from school sometimes, and they won't ever describe it as a policy or a constituent service issue, but they'll say, so and so told me that we need to fix I need to fix the basketball hoop at this park because it's broken. Or I'll get to just today spend some time with students who came to perform at our Juneteenth event on City Hall Plaza, and to hear from them all of the dreams that they have, all the excitement that they have for the summer. This is a role where at the local level, you have, especially in Boston, anything is possible. We can't solve the whole challenge or fix everything immediately, but you can always make progress on an issue. You can always do something to help someone who needs it. And often that makes it a challenge of how to prioritize and not say yes to everything, because there are so many things that need energy and time and resources. But this feeling that we have so much agency to make change and to show that government works and to show that communities can still come together and support each other and take care of each other, that's the most exciting part of it.
You are a leader who still has hope and looks for the best in people.
I see it every day. I see it every day in our community members. And what's beautiful about our city is that residents will tell it like it is, and they're not going to sit back and wait for someone else to fix it. And so so many of the things that we get to do in City Hall is actually just learn from how people are trying to implement solutions on their own in every different part of the city, and sense then how do we make connections? How do we learn from this? How do we amplify or expand what's happening? And I think there's tremendous importance in finding those examples of hope, finding the proof that more is possible. And I get to see it every day all around the city in what our residents are doing.
We've talked about some serious things. Do you mind if I flip it a little bit and talk about something frivolous?
Let's do it.
Give you some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
How would you describe yourself? One word.
Curious.
Favorite movie?
Interstellar.
Favorite music?
Classical.
Favorite food?
If I had to pick one food to have every day forever, it would be pho. Vietnamese noodle soup.
Do you have a hidden talent?
I'm a good listener.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
To speak any language.
What's your birthday? I don't want to know how old you are. I just want to know the date you were.
January 14th.
And that makes you what? A
Capricorn.
Capricorn? Theme song.
Hmm.
When you're going up to make that campaign speech, what do you play?
I don't know. We probably need to adjust it for today. I'm anything Beyonce is good by me.
Okay, and we'll work on a theme song.
Okay.
Okay, I got a couple ideas. Favorite vacation spot?
I like hiking vacations. I like adventure vacations. I like doing. If everyone else is on the beach, I will somehow find some project for myself to get too busy with, and so it's better if I just stay active.
Okay, one last one. If you could have dinner with any one person, living or dead, with whom would you have dinner?
I will say my grandmother on my mom's side had a brain aneurysm and stroke fairly early, and I was an early teen. And I didn't realize when I was younger how much wealth of experience and knowledge. And apparently she was one of the first women in Taiwan to really take on, she was working, had a career, even while raising 7 kids, and participated as a precinct chairwoman at a time when,
no kidding.
yeah, and I had no idea until after she had passed about all that she had done. And so if I could go back and just have one more chance to really talk to her.
Thank you for what you do for Boston and what you do for women and what you do for all of us. You're remarkable. Thanks. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you to our partners, the Stavros Niarchos Foundation. And remember, all politics is personal.